today's Lexington Remembers interview. Lexington Remembers was started in around 2005 by Mary Gillespie, Dan Fenn, and Jackie Ward, and has conducted over 75 interviews with Lexingtonians to capture their memories of Lexington. These interviews are posted on YouTube under Lexington Remembers, so check it out when you have a minute. I'm Donna Hooper, and today with me is fellow Lexington Remembers member Beverly Kelly. And we are honored today to be interviewing longtime Lexingtonian Marjorie Modoono as Marge prepares to celebrate her 100th birthday. And with Marge today is her son Jody. And we hope to capture some of the memories of life in Lexington over the past 75 years as Marge has been a resident.
And may I just interrupt? Today is June 6th, 2022, just so everybody has a reference
So you'll
time.
catch it out. So Marge, welcome and congratulations on your upcoming birthday.
Thank you.
So you have said before that you were born in Malden and spent a number of years during your youth in Nova Scotia, and then you came back to Lexington as a young teenager, and you experienced Lexington from your young teenage years, and then this is where you met your husband, Mr. Modoono. Can you give us a little sense of what those early Lexington years were like for you and how you met your husband? You came, what year did you come to Lexington?
I came to Lexington in
38.
The late 30s, 1938?
1938.
You were 16.
You came here as a young 16-year-old.
You were 16.
I was 16.
And where did you go when you came to Lexington?
I lived on Bloomfield Street with a friend.
And then after a few years, you took a position with a family, did you? Did you serve as a nanny with a family?
I was a nanny for Mrs. Whalen's family.
Mm-hmm.
She was an organist, wasn't she, at the Unitarian Church? I think she, maybe not at that younger age, but then she moved next to the Unitarian Church, didn't she?
Well, she was just a singer then.
Oh, she was a singer.
She was beside St. Bridget's,
okay.
actually.
Right.
And in those days, she moved from Elliott Road, I guess it was, Marge, when you first
Yes,
started
from
there.
Elliott Road.
And then she and her family moved. She had quite a large family. She moved down to Harrington Road, right? Right near St. Bridget's.
Right.
And in those days, that was the old St. Bridget's Church, right? The big wooden church.
Right.
Yep, because the quote new church that's there now, I think, was built in the mid to late 50s.
Mm-hmm. So you were her nanny for a while, up on...
But not there, on Elliott.
On Elliott Road. Okay.
And so how was it you met Edward?
I met him in 1939.
1939?
Yeah.
And how'd you bump into each other?
Up on the street.
He was, I guess I must have been walking home to Bloomfield, and he stopped and offered me a ride, wanted to ride. He says, I live in your neighborhood. And
And you said, I haven't seen
I
you
thought
around.
that was fine.
Yeah.
I was meeting someone in my neighborhood.
And look what happened.
I
huh?
never knew later that was a big fib. But anyway, it turned out fine.
And he had various jobs with the bank, Mr. Worthen, right? Edwin
He worked
Worthen.
for Mr. Worthen. He used to take care of all the houses that were going up for sale and different things like that.
And you mentioned he had worked for Michelson's Shoes, too,
He
Mr.
worked for
Michelson.
Michelson's Shoe, yes. Delivering.
Yeah.
And he worked theater pharmacy, delivering.
That must have been the Harold Michelson. Do you remember
Oh,
that
yes,
name?
the father,
Harold
yes.
Michelson, right.
Yes.
Okay. And
Dick
theater-
Michelson's dad,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
So Edward, your husband Eddie, did you call him Eddie or Ed, or what you call him?
We called him, yes,
Yeah.
he was called Eddie.
Eddie.
And Babe.
And Babe.
And Babe.
Well,
That
that
was
was
his
no, that was a nick,
nickname.
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Lexington name.
Okay.
Oh, Babe
Okay.
Modoono.
This-
So, you know, his Lexington name, because he was what, one of 12 kids?
Yeah.
So,
And
and
the story was with him being called Babe. He was supposed to be the Babe, but
Oh,
there
wow.
was what? 3 later?
Four-
girls?
four later.
later.
He wasn't the last
Yeah, it
one.
wasn't
then.
the last one. Yeah.
4 later.
Wow.
so the Modoono family was on Woburn Street.
Right.
And like you said, he was one of 12 kids.
Well, no,
Not all here.
they weren't all there
Yeah.
at that time. But
And-
a lot of them were.
And they pretty much had a nursery and landscaping business. Is that? They had a nursery and landscaping business. So some of the development on Woburn Street today is on Modoono land, right?
Up Webb Street.
Webb
Yeah.
Street.
Some on Woburn Street. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the
So two-
Modoonos have been on Woburn Street for quite some time.
Yeah, I would say since I'd say 1915, I think was the first house, and right around that time.
The first Modoonos in 1915.
Well, the first house that they've rented several places.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay.
my father was born in 15. He was born in the house on,
The big house?
no,
No.
They didn't move there until I think it was 20 or 22,
Ah.
1922, roughly.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
what year were you married, Marge?
Pardon?
What year were you married?
1940.
40, which was in the midst of World War II,
Well, not quite.
Yeah.
getting
for
ready
us.
to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he was not drafted then because he was doing work.
For the Alcan Highway from Iraq.
Yeah. Worked the airports.
So he
Uh,
went in 42, give or take.
He was, no,
You
He
had-
went in 43, 44. He got drafted. So,
Oh.
yeah.
Okay.
So you had shared with us a recollection, Marge, of hearing about Pearl Harbor.
well, I remember Pearl Harbor. I remember coming over the radio, and everyone was just shocked.
And where were you guys? Were
And
you working?
We were doing a job. He was I don't know. We were the waitress and the butler.
And the
I guess,
butler,
I
yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
For a family on Hancock Street.
Oh.
You were working a big party.
It was a party, yes,
Yeah,
that they
yeah.
had. Right.
And
And
You
in
heard it
those
come on the
days,
radio.
you did anything for a buck.
That's right.
So they heard it on the radio at the party, did they?
We were in the kitchen, and
Oh,
we had
okay.
we had
Oh.
the radio on, and we heard it. We heard it before they heard it.
Of course, there were no televisions at that point, so everybody listened to the
No,
radio.
it was a radio.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No television.
No television.
The party came to a stop
the party.
soon
Preaching
after.
hall.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure.
So that was a big
The
time.
party came to an end pretty
Mhm.
soon.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
That was
So then you're still living on Woburn Street today. So how was it you came about? You built your house on Woburn Street, correct?
well. First, we rented at 132 Woburn Street, and the family house was 192, and then we built on 285 Woburn.
Which is where you are today,
Yes,
right? And how much did you pay for the land? Do you remember?
$1,600.
$1,600.
And almost an acre we have, don't we?
Whoa!
Yep, pretty
Wow!
close.
Wow!
Those were the days.
Yeah.
Those were the days.
Right.
Yeah. And
Wow.
behind you was all with
And
that.
that end of Woburn Street was all, there was no houses. There were, one house was next to us, was built. And
Okay.
the other one had like a garage. Mr. Courier had like a garage. And there were, all the rest of the land was Open.
Well, we have a photograph of that neighborhood taken before your house was built and before that whole area was developed. So I think we're going to incorporate that into this interview so people can see
Okay.
the countryside intersection looking up towards the center, and
The
they'll
country
see that.
intersection was a gas station
And
on
a
on our side.
And a
That
little
was the only
store
thing.
too, wasn't there? A
Pardon?
small store too.
Across the way.
I thought it was there at that same corner where the gas station was.
What
but-
time?
Well, this would have been in the 40s.
A corner
Courier's-
store.
What did you say before what?
Oh, I think there was a little store with the gas station.
Well,
Do you-
they had a little place, yes.
Yes. Okay.
The Couriers, but that was
Right.
just a tiny.
Right. Now
Road
we'd like
stop.
to talk about the neighborhood and countryside a little bit because you were just a very short distance from countryside. The Couriers developed countryside, correct? And eventually built the restaurant where the Dunkin' Donuts is now. The Couriers.
Mr. Courier's brother,
Mhm.
but not Irvin Courier.
Okay.
He had the gas station.
Now, a couple of doors down from you were the Barclays, Betty and Bob Barclay. She was a courier, wasn't she?
Betty?
Betty.
Yeah.
Yes.
She was a courier.
Yes.
So it was her family that started that corner.
Right. Right.
Okay. Not her husband, but
No.
her
Right.
father, I guess, or
No,
uncle or something.
it was her father.
Okay.
Betty.
Mr. Courier.
Okay. Mr. Courier, right.
And there were two farmhouses on the opposite side of the street. One was Courier's and one was across from
Yeah,
us. And they were
Grandma.
where the Ambroses lived.
Oh, okay.
That
Yeah.
was one of the
big house.
older houses.
Yeah.
That was all that was down there
Okay.
prior to them coming for that.
So those were there. Those two houses were there before your house was
Yeah,
there.
but
Yes.
they've been there for years. They
Uh-huh.
were, you know,
So
Okay.
is that how it got the name Countryside? How did it?
I don't
Because
know.
it really was
I mean, that
out in
was-
the country.
yeah.
It was.
I mean, that was old 128. Was
Yep.
That was the road
Woburn
from
Street.
Yeah.
Woburn Street was
yeah.
128.
And then Lowell Street was the main drag out to Lowell and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
Kind of like
out
Route
that way,
3-ish,
out to the
Route 3-ish.
piggeries and
Wow.
all that stuff.
There were a lot of piggeries in Lexington. Do you remember them, Marge? Do you remember any piggeries? Piggeries.
Pig farm.
Pig
The
farm.
only one was up off of Merritt Road.
Oh,
Oh, Daly's had pigs, didn't they?
I think-
and Johnny Carroll, if you know.
yes, yes.
Okay, he had
Carroll's.
his family had pigs up there.
That's right.
And I remember I grew up on Utica Street, which is right in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
And there were piggeries like at the end of Webb Street and the end of Utica and Dunham. It's all conservation land now, but there was a piggery up there. I remember smelling it during the summers.
Well, it's big.
So what else about Countryside do you remember? Anything particular? There were any other stores in the other three corners?
I think there was just there was something on the other corner. I can't quite think of what it was, but there was.
Oh, you mentioned an IGA, a grocery store where Alexander's is today. Do you remember that?
Behind
that-
the hardware store.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that going towards Woburn on that
Right.
side. That was a full IGA grocery store.
A regular grocery
But
store.
all of that land was developed way later.
Yeah,
I mean, I even
yes.
remember some of
Yeah.
that being built. you
Oh,
know.
do you?
Yeah, yeah.
All those
Okay.
buildings that are there now were all
Yeah.
from later.
I mean, the James H. McManus ice cream store and Rudd's
Oh.
Drug, that
I
all
don't
was
remember that.
Cumberland Farms. There was one there.
Oh, yeah, I remember
All-
the Cumberland
So that whole
Farms,
strip, but that was built much
Right.
later.
where the pizza place is
Yeah,
now.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So, Jody, you grew up in the house where your mother
Mhm.
lives now.
Right.
Right. With
He
how many
was
brothers
born
and
in that
sisters?
house, yeah.
Was he
Two-
actually born there?
Well, no.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
Brought home there.
But
Right.
only
yeah.
Okay.
the
No.
only one. I mean, the others were.
The
Oh,
yeah, two brothers and a sister.
Two
You're
brothers
you're
and a
the
sister.
youngest.
I'm the youngest. Yeah.
Right. Because we graduated from high school with your oldest brother, John?
Yeah.
With
John.
the oldest,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
My sister Carol and my brother Bill.
Uh-huh.
Bill.
Okay.
So what was behind your house Marge, right now you're in front of basically the senior housing and Harrington School, basically. There was all open land behind your lot.
Just wooded land, yeah, just
Open fields.
Where was this horse?
Pardon?
Where was the horse?
Well, there's a little pony
Ring.
ring.
The
'cause
pony
it's
Oh,
in
that
ring.
was Lowell Street. That was on Lowell Street.
Well, in the picture, it shows it on Woburn Street.
No,
The entrance
not
probably.
my time.
Yeah, the entrance probably came in from Lowell Street because
Okay.
that's what I'm guessing.
What's in the picture is a small little pony ring. So maybe what you're remembering was something larger than that.
No,
Okay.
that would have been the end of our property. No,
Yeah.
there was nothing there.
And where was there a driving range someplace too?
Yeah, there was.
Driving range,
Yeah,
it was on the, but they weren't at the same time. I don't think
Okay.
but that was all on Lowell,
So the entrance was off Lowell.
hitting towards Woburn Street.
Yeah. But so the activity
Okay.
was off of Lowell Street
but it was well shut down before,
before you
we
built.
really got it, established there.
Okay.
But we've found golf balls for probably
really?
15 years
Really?
walking through the field to get to
Uh-huh.
school. So
Uh,
yeah.
Now, did all your kids go to Harrington School, Marge, or did some of the older kids go to another school?
No, went to a school, Harrington, but
Well, Harrington wasn't built for Carroll, so they.
Harrington wasn't built, so they went they went to Muzzy. They had Lexington was kind of waiting, and Fisk was built.
Did somebody go to Monroe? Monroe? It's right down from Muzzy because Muzzy was the high school originally.
No,
And the
not
junior
Monroe.
They didn't go to
No.
Monroe? Oh, okay. So they went to high school at what is now Muzzy condominiums.
Yeah,
Or,
no,
no, that was before. No,
No.
you're right.
that was
That was
the junior
later.
high at
That's
the time.
right. It was junior
Yeah,
high.
the junior high was.
So you
in
went,
there.
yeah, we went
Yeah.
to junior high
I think
there.
the
Yeah.
new high school was opened in
Yeah,
the
what,
50s.
50?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was off on that. Another thing on Woburn Street, Simonians. Can you tell us?
Simonian had a grocery store at the corner of Cottage Street.
Right. And Penny Candy, I remember.
Penny candies.
And just
Oh yeah, a 5-cent chocolate bar,
5 cents.
A big
Oh,
one.
Yeah.
a good sized chocolate bar.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But you could get milk and eggs and bread and that sort of thing there.
At Simonian's.
It's Simonians. Yeah, just the basics. It was just a small place, I remember, right at the corner
corner
of Cottage Street. Yeah, the building is still there, but it's a house now.
What was it after the Simonians?
Oh, was it Doc Royal's Fix-It Shop? The bicycle
yes,
shop?
yes,
Yep, I remember that too.
that came afterwards.
And then he moved downtown, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't recall.
On Mass Ave near where the Battle Green Inn was later built.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure his bike shop moved there. But anyway, getting to the center now, what do you remember particularly? What are some of the stores you remember in Lexington Center, or restaurants, or?
Well, the first store was Partridge's, and it was like a restaurant, but they sold ice cream too.
And where was that actually?
At the corner of Edison Way,
Right, that's what I thought. Okay.
and then there was a Hood's
Okay.
store, and Woolworths.
And did you work in Woolworths?
I did.
You did.
I did.
I
Few
rem-
years later.
I remember it well. In the back far left-hand corner, you could buy fish,
Yeah.
pet fish and pet
Yeah.
turtles
Parakeets.
and parakeets. That's right. You remember it too. You must
Yeah.
remember
Oh,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you worked there for a while.
I worked there when my husband went in the service.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what
and
others?
and my mother came to take care. We only had the one child then,
Okay.
and she came, and I worked with Margaret, but she wasn't the manager then. She wasn't the manager. And then Margaret moved to, they built the store in Concord. And then at that time, she was the manager of the one in Concord.
That was my father's sister,
And I worked there.
Margaret.
Margaret Anderson? No.
No, Margaret
No.
Modoono.
Oh, would have been a
And
Modoono,
Mrs.
yeah.
Anderson worked there too, though, right?
Mrs.
Eleanor, is it Eleanor Anderson worked there too?
Eleanor Anderson.
From Woburn
yes,
Street? She was
yes,
another Woburn Street family.
Right.
Oh.
She worked at the
Yeah.
Woolworths.
And Eleanor Vasello, she was the clerk there.
That was a busy spot.
That
Woolworths.
was
Yeah.
a big store.
It was a
Yeah,
big
it was
store.
big.
It
Yeah.
seemed like it was a big store.
Yeah. And what else? What other stores do you remember along
So
there?
we get to Woolworth, and then there was like a Carol's.
Carol
They sold.
Carol Cutright.
Cutright.
Pardon?
Carol Cutright?
Yeah,
Right? Yeah.
where they sold jewelry and. I don't mean jewelry. I mean makeup.
Cosmetics.
And stuff like that.
Right. I remember that.
And then the A&P up on the top,
Mm-hmm.
and Childs' restaurant was next. And then there was a hardware store. And there was some small one in between, but I don't remember what that was. And Hunt's drugstore on the corner.
Oh, the one that later became Colonial Drugstore.
On Waltham Street.
Right.
No, this is
Up further on the Hunt block.
Colonial.
Colonial was right at the corner where the ice cream store is today.
But that was on the other side of the street.
Right.
Yes,
Yes.
he's on.
Yes.
So there's another drugstore way up, Marge?
Then there was a building. There was the opening, and the train station.
Yeah.
Down, and then there was what they called I forget what they called it.
I think the Rosses, wasn't
And
there?
that had. See, I didn't have much to do there, so I don't recall too many of the buildings.
Do you remember the big building? It was called the Central Block, like across from the library. A big wooden, 3-story, big wooden building,
Right,
huge.
right.
The one that caught on
And
fire.
it caught on fire
Yeah.
and burned spectacularly to the ground.
Yeah.
In the late 70s, was it? Or
Yeah,
sometime in the 70s?
that's
It
where you
was,
used to get the taxi too, wasn't it? At
Oh, yeah.
Depot Square on the side of.
Yep, I remember that.
If you were going to grab a taxi, that's where they were. I
Right.
remember
Right.
the taxis.
And do you remember the Rexall drugstore?
Yes, that was down below.
Yeah, down back where we were talking about
Yeah,
a
when
minute
we
ago.
were talking about the stores coming up.
Right. And Jaime Doodlesack. Didn't you know somebody that knew him?
Well, Carol went. My daughter Carol. That was her friend in high school.
Oh, is that what the
Yeah.
connection was? Okay. Yep. I
Where
remember
did they
that.
live, Marge? Doodle Sacks.
Uh,
I don't know. I wanted to say Sun Valley, but I don't think so. I don't think it was developed at
Yeah,
that point.
probably not.
And the Minuteman restaurant, too? The little Minuteman restaurant?
we went through that. We went by that.
No,
Okay.
you didn't include that one.
Okay. Sorry.
And then
Oh.
was that the diner or was that something else?
No, the diner was on the other side of the street.
The
where
The
diner
Minuteman restaurant.
Yeah.
same side as Woolworths.
wasn't too big, right?
No, small. That's my recollection.
Mm.
But across the street was the diner, where the
The diner was right in
Battle-
front of
Battle
the
Green Inn.
Battle Green Inn
right,
was.
and the only thing after the diner, there was no building there.
Right.
Was the Buicks, Viano's
Oh,
Buick
Viano's.
place.
Yeah.
You remember that? They sold cars there. That was really down
Buicks.
where Buicks, right?
Yeah.
Down where Panera was until a couple of months ago.
In that entryway there.
We had a car dealership right in Lexington Center,
Yeah,
and they sold gas too.
Yeah.
And did repairs, and you could
and
buy
he
a
was
car
there
there.
for a good many years.
Mhm.
And the bowling alley.
Oh, do you remember the bowling alley, Marge?
Well, I never was in it, but I know it was under those stores.
You know, today there's still a bowling pin.
The brickwork.
Yeah, in the brickwork above the entrance to the bowling alley. It's still there on the building.
No kidding.
But when I was a kid, we were not allowed to go down there. That was off
No.
limits.
No, I never was down.
That was off limits, and the
But
corner
my husband,
drugstore
he
was.
bowled there. I
Oh,
know.
did he? He was a bowler?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Good.
When you shopped in DeSalle's downstairs, the bowling alley floor was still there.
That's right.
You
The
could
skinny little
Yeah.
lines.
No
Yeah,
kidding.
I
Yeah,
remember
the
that.
wood floor was still in there in the
Yeah.
lower
The
level
children's
of
department
DeSalle's.
was down there,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
when DeSalle's was there.
Yeah.
I remember
Well,
that.
I guess the KSC bowled there because he joined up
Oh,
the KSC, the bowling alley.
Yeah, they had a
Bowling,
Lexington had a very
So-
organized and formal
Bowling?
league
really?
with really good participation.
Oh, that's great.
That was a big hobby.
And that was the only bowling alley in Lexington.
Oh
wasn't
yeah,
it?
absolutely. Yeah.
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 I think the.
I mean, all the civic groups had teams.
Oh,
and That
okay.
was part of it
like
too.
the Lions
Yeah,
and the,
yeah.
all the
Rotary
Elks
Club,
and
they all
everything.
had
Yeah.
that. You know,
Oh.
Masons, the whole bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think the old Belfry Club had one too, but that was a
Yeah.
private club.
Belfry.
The Belfry Club on the corner of Muzzy and Forest.
Hmm.
Yeah, but that was more of a private club.
It was bowling up at Hayden too.
And
Yeah.
Hayden, well, when that was eventually built.
In the days when
And
people actually bowled.
And the only other building beyond Muzzy Street was Smith's.
Oh
A
yes,
huge
Smith's
building.
paper store.
Yeah.
And what did they sell in Smith's?
They sold grain and
Oh,
all kinds of things that were,
Was it like a convenience store or?
yeah.
they sold the newspapers.
Yes.
The daily newspapers.
But
And candy. I think they used to sell candy in
I
there,
don't know.
like penny candy or something.
I didn't have anything to do with,
You weren't in there too
I
much.
don't know. I just know there was a big old building there.
Right.
Where'd you get your fabric?
Pardon?
Oh,
Where'd you
yes.
get your fabric?
Good question.
Where did I get my fabric?
Yeah, and your knitting and
Notions.
Oh, I got that. Well, we're coming up the other side.
The other side of the street again.
Yeah,
Well,
they had a store that you had fabric and
was it
oh,
called
I got to think of what it was.
Baker's?
Well, Baker's was on. Baker's was up on that after Childs's.
Yes.
Childs's.
the same
restaurant
side
there,
as
yes,
Woolworth's.
Baker's.
Right.
And then Bateman's
Bateman.
Mhm.
later
Mm-hmm.
came down on the
Right.
other side. So there was 2 department stores.
What I remember about Baker's was you could get all your Girl Scout and Boy Scout uniforms and
Right,
badges
right,
and
right.
everything and fabric.
Yeah.
And all that sort of
Yeah.
thing there.
I think too in Lexington Center to the left of the library, isn't that where Douglas Funeral Home
Yep.
started there?
Yes, it
and then
was.
they expanded and built their facility over on
Yeah.
Worthing Road. So Marge, clearly over those years and then into the 50s and 60s, I mean, the population just boomed. And,
Oh, yeah.
And we were building schools, and we actually at one point closed schools. Well, we built new schools, Bridge and Bowman, and then we closed
Estabrook.
schools.
We had all kinds of.
Then
we
the
had- we
schools
had,
got
all those schools
yeah.
open. Bowman's.
So the
Wow.
population came, and initially when you were talking about the war in the 40s, and Beverly said it was all radio time. There was no TVs, but in the transportation, like I said, there was a taxi business right at Depot Square there, but there were trucks,
Transportation was a bus. There was
the
nothing.
buses, and
Well,
do you
train.
remember streetcars going down Mass Ave?
No.
I don't know when those were
No,
stopped. Yeah.
Not in
But
my time.
trains too.
Not in my time.
We had a train come through the
Oh, the trains were
Yeah.
in the back.
right behind the depot.
By the depot. Yeah.
think
Right.
The
that was-
trains that went right through.
Yep.
Crossed over Woburn Street.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think those stopped in 78 after the blizzard, give or take.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And then 128 was built in the late 50s. You
Right.
mentioned earlier the Kelly House is on Lowell Street. So
Right.
with the influx of population, Lowell Street and Woburn Street was further built up. So
Oh,
when you
yes.
got there initially, it was pretty
Right.
remote.
Right.
And all of the houses. Then the Burlington Mall was built in the late 60s, right? And that
Right.
really, everybody
Oh, I
went up
saw
Lowell
all
Street
those
to get
things,
to the
yeah.
mall.
Right. When was the mall built?
Sometime in the
It's
late 60s, I remember.
Okay. Because I remember going up to the North Shore Mall before the Burlington Mall was built. So,
You had mentioned while your husband was in the war, you worked at Woolworths. And then you mentioned earlier when we had chatted, Marge, that the Red Cross was operating out of the Garrity House.
I drove 10 years with the
wow.
Red Cross, and that was a little building.
On Hancock Street
Yeah,
there.
a little tiny building,
Yeah.
a little old building.
Still there.
It's still there?
Mhm.
Still there, and it's a private residence.
Yep.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Now, was that during the war that you drove for the Red Cross?
No.
No.
This was well after the war.
Yeah.
I think
Oh,
you
yeah.
said maybe the 60s, give or
Yeah.
take. The kids were
Oh.
in school, and you were a
Oh.
Red Cross driver.
Right.
Was that a volunteer position?
Oh, yes.
Ah, so you did volunteer work in town too.
Yeah. And we never got any pay. There
Yeah.
was no pay.
You
Oh.
were very active in the town, Marge, over all these years. Funny, you were a nanny for the Whalen family, who then Mrs. Whalen was the organist at St. Bridget's. And you had said you were an active parishioner of St. Bridget's. And then I recall all of your activity when you were an election worker. So you were.
remember when I was an election worker?
Yeah, I
Yes.
do. I just voted today too. Did you have a chance to vote?
I voted today.
Good
too.
for
You
you.
did. Good for you.
And
Mine's in the
Yeah. It's in the envelope.
on that
Oh.
on that question one.
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Right.
So
We won't
it was
discuss
like
it.
40
No.
years, Marge. You were an election worker, give or take.
I was a long time.
You went
yeah.
from
well,
one
from,
of the crew to like one of the
Kennedy.
leaders.
from Kennedy
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
until oh my gosh,
Early 2000s.
Yeah,
I
think
was
so.
an election worker for a long time.
You were.
Mm.
And in those days, I mean, today it's I checked in today and it was all electronic. They didn't even have a paper check-in sheet anymore, Marge. It was
No
you were
kidding.
all on the computer.
Oh,
So it's significantly computerized. However, I still did get a little paper receipt proving that was me. I voted and they checked me off on the list. And then so the whole system has changed enormously since you first
Wow.
volunteered. And in those initial days, everything was paper ballots and everything had to be hand counted and everybody had to do their marking.
when Kennedy wasn't, it was when it was like a primary. Oh, all
The turnout was wild.
all the ballots were just unbelievable that we had to count. We counted all night long,
Wow.
all night long.
And that's when the population was a lot less too. Imagine
Oh, yeah.
today.
Right.
So we
We had
switched.
people come in the election workers stayed on as long as they could, and then the other workers came in
to
to
replace
do
them.
the counting,
Yeah.
and I counted all night long.
Wow.
Those were the days.
I got 6 o'clock in the morning, and this isn't being recorded, I hope.
Yeah, it is. So you
No.
were there forever.
Huh?
You were there forever.
Well, no, it was, I went home, showered, changed my clothes, and my best friend that I had in on Bloomfield Street, my best friend, her husband had died,
Yeah.
and his wake was the night before, and he was being buried the next morning. And I went to the funeral.
Yeah.
After no sleep?
No, after no sleep.
Yeah.
Wow.
I came home fell into bed, and my bedroom has 4 windows on each, 2 on, every side, right?
Yeah,
North, south,
yeah,
east.
2 and 2.
And I woke up at 5 o'clock, and my room was ablaze with the sun.
Oh.
And I don't know where I am.
You were disoriented.
I don't know where I am. I had to think. And so I after, I realized what it was. And someone said afterwards, that was probably because I had to get supper for the kids.
Oh, yeah.
And that was what woke
You
me.
were
Right.
startled, yeah.
But it was the funniest feeling to wake up and
Not know what time it was.
to see all this brightness,
Right.
because in the morning we don't get the sun on my side.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So I never saw the sun in my bedroom like that.
Well, that was a day to remember. All
Yes,
that
a day to
activity that
remember.
happened in that day.
Oh, that was.
Can we check to see if she got overtime for that
Yeah,
shift?
right.
Is there any
We'll check the archives for you, Marge.
Check the what?
for your overtime for all that long
Oh,
shift?
overtime. I don't think so.
I just want to ask a question too, because we're almost out of time. St. Bridget's, you were involved in the women's club
Yes.
at St. Bridget's. Were you? What did you do? What did the women's club do?
Our motto was, we had prayers, of course, but we weren't that religious. We weren't like the sodality or whatever.
It was more of a social club, Marge.
Oh,
wasn't
was it a
Yeah.
social
It
club?
was a social.
Oh,
With a little
okay.
religion.
Yeah.
And we had the, the president and all that. President.
Officers.
Yeah.
Vice president, I don't know.
Did you have like bazaars and stuff too, Marge? Fundraising
Oh yes,
and
we always
you know,
had. We
things.
always had every
Okay.
year. We
Yeah.
had a bazaar.
Yeah.
That made our money for
Brother.
so that we could have it for the rest.
It was more of a social
And
club.
we did
Okay.
we had who we were going to have on the committees, and we had our book. I still have one of the books, and so that was a social affair.
Those were the days.
Good.
It's hard to believe, Marge. It's been over 80 years since you came to Lexington. You raised your family here. Jody's raising his family. There's still Modoonos up and down Woburn
Yep.
Street.
There's a few.
And life goes on.
And my husband was born
On Woburn
on Woburn Street.
Street. Yeah.
Wow.
And they lived in that little house,
On Utica.
I think I told you.
Yeah.
So they never lived in the big house. They lived in that little house before.
Is there
a couple of
anything else?
houses down from
Yeah.
where we lived first. I think
Anything else you remember that you think really we should capture for memory's sake? What you
Of
of things that you experienced in Lexington, or the way things were over the years that you've lived here and raised
Well,
your
I
family.
always thought
here?
it was a nice town,
You decided to stay.
and I decided to stay.
Well, you chose well.
So yeah, no,
you raised all
I
your
lived
kids.
on. Well, my husband was born out. I think it's 128. He was born in, and then we lived at 132.
Mm-hmm.
The big house was 192, and then our house is 285
Right.
on the other side. So he never got off the street.
He never-
like they
Right.
say.
He never
Except
got
he
off the
went to
street.
war. He went to.
Alaska.
Well,
Well, we
and,
really like to
Yeah.
thank you
yes.
and Jody both for sharing your memories with us today.
yeah.
Yeah,
And,
thank you
uh,
both very
Thank you.
much. It
You're
was
welcome.
a delight to
Very
have you
exciting.
here.
And wish you well on your 100th birthday
Yes.
celebration.
Coming up on June 16th.
18th, I think.
Well, the
it's-
party is the 18th.
Oh,
Oh, there's the
Party's the
surprise.
18th.
Party's the
My birthday's
The birthday's the 16th.
16th. Okay,
Yeah.
well, have a wonderful birthday.
Yeah. Again, thank you all for joining us today on June 6th with the interview with Marge Modoono and her son Jody. And we encourage you to check our Lexington Remembers videos that are found on YouTube. And this one, and we appreciate the assistance of all the folks at LexMedia.
Okay, that's what I was going to
for
say.
helping
Yes.
us with all of these videos that we've been doing.
LexMedia has been wonderful to do all these interviews, and we appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much.